These are 7 legendary classic rock songs whose hidden origins reveal shocking truths about love, obsession, fire, and madness. The stories behind these 1970s masterpieces are far stranger than the music itself. Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody began not in a recording studio, but in the mind of a young art student who called it simply the cowboy song. Back in the late 1960s, Freddie Mercury was scribbling ideas on scraps of paper at Ealing Art College, developing fragments that would eventually become rock's most ambitious masterpiece. One particular line haunted him from those early days. "Mama just killed a man." Mercury carried this dark confession in his head for years, waiting for the right moment to unleash it. When Queen finally entered Rockfield Studios in August 1975 to record what would become A Night at the Opera, Mercury sat at a piano that had witnessed history. This was allegedly the same instrument Paul McCartney used to write Hey Jude, and Rick Wakeman played on David Bowie's Hunky Dory. Working alongside guitarist Brian May and producer Roy Thomas Baker, Mercury would gaze out the studio window at an old farm weather vane, and this led to speculation that the iconic line, "Any way the wind blows," was born from that very view. But Mercury never confirmed this connection, taking the secret with him to the grave. The song's 6-minute runtime terrified record executives. They insisted radio would never play something so long and complex. That's when Kenny Everett stepped in. He was Mercury's friend at Capitol Radio, and he defied conventional wisdom by playing Bohemian Rhapsody 14 times in one weekend. The buzz he created propelled the song to #1 on the UK singles chart, proving that sometimes friendship matters more than industry rules. You're on High Voltage Rock History, where rock history isn't told the way you remember it. We break down the stories, the secrets, and the moments that changed everything. Subscribe if you're ready to see rock differently. Deep Purple's Smoke on the Water emerged from actual smoke and actual water on December 4th, 1971. The band had traveled to Montreux, Switzerland, planning to record their Machine Head album at the picturesque casino overlooking Lake Geneva. That night, Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention were performing when disaster struck. Someone in the audience fired a flare gun at the wooden ceiling, igniting an inferno that consumed the entire building. Deep Purple watched from their hotel as smoke literally rose over the water of Lake Geneva, creating one of rock's most famous opening riffs from the ashes of misfortune. Bassist Roger Glover later came up with the perfect title that captured that haunting December night. But the most twisted tale belongs to Blondie's seemingly upbeat one way or another. Debbie Harry's driving vocals mask a terrifying reality. She was being stalked. In the early 1970s, an ex-boyfriend who worked with chemical fumes began terrorizing her. Harry later revealed he was so wild she had to move out of New Jersey. The stalker would drink heavily after inhaling toxic chemicals all day, becoming increasingly dangerous. Harry transformed her nightmare into an anthem, turning victimization into empowerment through pure rock and roll defiance. Eric Clapton's Layla tells the story of a love so forbidden it nearly destroyed friendships and sanity. Clapton had fallen obsessively in love with Pattie Boyd, the wife of his close friend George Harrison. The song's title came from a 7th century Persian love story about Majnun, a man driven mad by his unrequited love for Layla. Clapton saw himself in this ancient tale of romantic torment. Desperate to win Boyd's affections, Clapton made a dramatic gesture that would define both their lives. He brought her to a London flat, pulled out a cassette player, and played Layla for her, his musical confession of obsession. The raw emotion in those guitar lines, enhanced by Duane Allman's legendary slide guitar work and Derek and the Dominoes' anguished performance, finally convinced Boyd that Clapton's love was real. Producer Tom Dowd captured this intensity during the Layla and other assorted love song sessions. She divorced Harrison in 1977 and married Clapton 2 years later. The intensity that created Layla would eventually consume their marriage too. Van Halen's Jump carries the darkest origin story of all. David Lee Roth was riding in the back of his 1951 Mercury when inspiration struck from the most unlikely source, a television news report about a potential suicide jumper. Instead of being horrified, Roth imagined the crowd's reaction, thinking someone would inevitably yell, "Go ahead and jump." But rather than glorifying self-destruction, Roth flipped the concept into an invitation to embrace life, love, and action. The song faced years of internal resistance. David Lee Roth and producer Ted Templeman consistently vetoed Eddie Van Halen's keyboard-driven composition because they preferred the band's signature guitar-heavy sound. Eddie had to fight for over 2 years to get Jump recorded for their 1984 album, but his persistence paid off when it became Van Halen's only #1 hit, spending 5 weeks at the top of the Billboard charts. Ironically, Eddie had gained confidence for this keyboard experiment through a secret session. He had quietly recorded the guitar solo for Michael Jackson's Beat It, telling Guitar World, "I figured nobody would know." When that collaboration succeeded, Eddie felt emboldened to push Van Halen into new territory, though the success of Jump would ultimately contribute to the band's breakup, as fame intensified existing tensions. Led Zeppelin's Stairway to Heaven began with fragments captured on Jimmy Page's ever-present cassette recorder. Page would tape musical ideas as they came to him, and Stairway evolved from these scattered recordings over months of development. The complete song emerged during sessions at the remote Headley Grange mansion, where the band's isolation allowed for epic musical experimentation that would define Led Zeppelin IV. When Led Zeppelin debuted Stairway live in Belfast on March 5, 1971, the audience reaction was lukewarm. John Paul Jones recalled that they were all bored to tears, waiting to hear something they knew. Nobody in that Belfast crowd could have predicted they were witnessing the birth of what many consider rock's greatest anthem. The song was never released as a single, yet it became the most requested track of the 1970s, proving that true classics do not need commercial packaging. Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here carries the most haunting backstory of all. On June 5, 1975, the band was mixing Shine On You Crazy Diamond for their Wish You Were Here album when a heavy-set stranger with a shaved head wandered into Abbey Road Studios. Nobody recognized this mysterious figure carrying a plastic bag. Roger Waters thought he was an EMI employee. David Gilmour assumed he was someone's friend. Only gradually did they realize this ghost from their past was Syd Barrett, their former bandmate whose mental breakdown had inspired the very song they were recording. Barrett's surprise appearance on Gilmour's wedding day created an almost supernatural moment. He sat silently through the session, then disappeared as mysteriously as he had arrived, never explaining his presence. The timing felt like a message from beyond. Barrett materialized during the creation of a song mourning his absence. Waters broke down in tears, confronted by the living embodiment of their greatest loss. These songs prove that rock's greatest masterpieces often emerge from life's most challenging moments. Fire and destruction gave us Smoke on the Water. Obsessive love created Layla. Fear and stalking produced One Way or Another. Suicidal despair transformed into Jump's life-affirming energy. A mysterious visitation from a lost friend inspired Wish You Were Here. Student notebooks became Bohemian Rhapsody's operatic complexity. Random musical fragments coalesced into Stairway to Heaven's epic journey. The next time you hear these classics, remember the human stories behind the music. Every guitar riff, every vocal line, every drum beat emerged from real people facing real struggles. These aren't just songs, they're survival stories set to music, proof that art can transform pain into beauty, confusion into clarity, and personal torment into universal anthems that outlive their creators. Rock and roll's greatest power lies not in its volume or rebellion, but in its ability to turn life's darkest moments into light that guides others through their own darkness.